Masachet Baba Mesiah, three-quarters of the line down towards the bottom. Mar Mor Beredra Yosef Mishmedra Hag Mashkanta, regarding a property that was pledged as part of the loan. Ba'atra de Misalki, in a place where the guy can evict the lender by prepaying the loan, meaning if he had a year to pay it off, but he paid it 6 months earlier, he can knock off the lender off the property. Misalakin and the sorry. Once the guy has eaten the amount of produce, if it was $100,000 loan, he ate $100,000 produce, we count that as the money that was as if the debt is paid. Misakin and then we evict him. More than that, we can't extract it because that looks just like avak beat. That's not considered extra. No, can we count it? If let's say he ate $100,000 for $50,000 loan, and there's another $50,000 loan, we don't transfer over that extra 50,000 to the second loan. Me regarding orphans, if it was a pledged property belonging to orphans, the lender ate it, the amount, and then we evict him. If he ate more, we do take the extra back. And we count it toward a different loan if necessary, all for the benefit of the orphans. Now that you mentioned that in the case where the guy ate more than the amount of the loan, we can't extract. So too in the case where he ate the exact amount of money that it was loaned, you can't evict him without payment of the cash of the loan. Evicting him from the property without cash is the same thing as taking away from the value of the produce that he took. That's considered a bakribit, and that's not refundable. Avad Rav Ashi Uvda Rav Ashi one time ruled in a case bitamim ketanim regarding orphans that were ketamim. He treated them as if they were adults, meaning as if they were adults, and there's no reason to treat them differently than the adults. The same way it can't be applied towards the principal, and it wasn't. He didn't go like the previous case where you're nicer or you're more lenient towards orphans. Regarding pledged property. In a place where the borrower can evict him from the loan by paying it off early. He can't touch the fruits at all. Unless he actually pledged that every year or so, a certain amount of time, the fruits that he eats will be considered like the yearly deduction from the debt. But a rabbi, Talmid Chacham, I feel should not even need to produce in that scenario because that looks like a beat for a Talmid Chacham. So then how can he eat the fruits in that type of scenario? Bikituta, limitation of benefits. Right, so what does that mean? It is an arrangement where the guy can use the fruits for a certain amount of years. Right? And after that, he can't. We'll explain what that means now. Once promised. That makes sense. That allows a case of kituta, limitation. And the case of kituta, according to opinion, holds that it's asur. How can a Talmid Chacham use the field? The Itmar. Now, before we answer the question, we're first going to quote it. The Breita says, kituta, the case of a limitation of benefits agreement. One opinion says it's mutar to do this type of arrangement. What's the scenario? Now we're going to finally explain it. Until 5 years, I'm eating the fruits. No, that it doesn't make a dent on the debt. From then on, we'll start making account of it, and it'll be targeted towards the tab. Different version. Any arrangement without an automatic reduction of the debt, no 3 years, is asur. But what's the case of an arrangement of the money? Where the guy said to the borrower, I'll eat the 5 years with a reduction of debt, and then I'll pay back everything after that. So according to the first version, where there was no reduction for the first amount of the few years, and he said it was asur, he'll allow the second case, because that is by a Talmid Chacham, because in the second case, at least there's a reduction of debt from the beginning, from the onset. But according to the second opinion, the second version, who did not allow the second scenario of the reduction from the onset, which is the more lenient way, then how would it be any scenario? If you don't allow that scenario, which is the more lenient scenario, which is the reduction of debt from the onset and no 3 years, then how can a Talmid Chacham, according to you, ever have a scenario where he'll be able to eat the fruits from a pledged property. The Gemara says Shari, it's allowed ki mashkanta de surah, like a surah type of pledge. The bekatve behachiv, because they write as follows in the document. At the end of these years, the land shall leave the lender's possession without any payment of money. Right? So in this place in Bavel, he would take the crops of the land for a certain amount of years. After after the loan will be considered paid in full. Then the land will automatically hop back to the borrower. So meaning, if he lent $1,000, the lender would give a document saying, I get to use the field for 10 years. And after 10 years, the land will leave me without any payment. It's like kind of like renting it from him instead of the loan. They both said, Hi Mashkanta, the case of a pledged property, but in the scenario, like we said earlier, that you can evict him by prepaying it, and a creditor cannot collect his debt from it after the lender's death. So the guy who's lending the money, who has temporary ownership, a creditor can't take it from his inheritors because it's not his, it might be redeemed still. And also Bechor, it does say he died. His son does not take double portion from that property because we still don't know if it's his yet. Ushveit mishamita, and shveit shemita will stop the loan. Right, all loans, all outstanding loans, are canceled out by shemita, with certain scenarios that are not. So in this type of scenario, it will be. However, in the places where the halacha is that you cannot evict him, now the whole scenario changes. The dynamics change. First of all, a creditor can collect his debt from it because it's already considered his for that period of time. And also his firstborn can take the portion if he dies. And since it belongs to him, Shemitah does not cancel it anymore because it's no longer considered a debt. Regarding pledged property, but in the case where you can evict him earlier, you can evict him. And he can't even touch the dates that already fell on the mats. The Hidush is the second he pays it back, it's over. You can't say, oh, the dates that fell, it fell while I owned it. No, as is, that second. The Agbanahuna Mixini, but if already had the dates in the basket, Kanen who heard it was Konet. Command the Marquent paying holes, Kelev, Kelio, Shalokeach, Pashut, Mocher, Kanalokeach. In a scenario, right, it's a big mahloka whether or not if I'm buying something from Reuven. So in general, not in this scenario, let's say in general, if I want to be connect something with my property, I can be. What if my property is in someone else's property? I'm trying to use that to acquire something from him. He's selling me his cup. His cup is in his property on top of my book. Can I use my kli in his property to be connected machloket? So according to the opinion who holds that the buyer can do a good kinyan there, even if I didn't lift the baskets, I'm konet because it's already on my mats. In that scenario, it'll be mutar according to that opinion. Chita. Now, obviously, in the case where you evict him, and he says before the loan, I will not be evicted, meaning I'm going against the custom. I will not be evicted earlier. It works. That is a good condition. However, in the case where you can evict, and the guy says, you know, I'll let you be evict me earlier, even though that's not our minhag. What's halacha? Do you have to make a kinyan on that extra condition? Yani, you have to sign on that? Or maybe it's just a good agreement verbally. Do not need the additional kinyan. You do need it. You do need the kinyan. If the borrower said, I will go and bring back the money, Yani says, I have the cash, let me go bring it to you. Lo achil, boom. From then on, it's already considered payback, and you cannot continue eating the fruits, and you have to wait for him to bring the money. Let me go and make money to pay back. Ravina says you can still eat because he doesn't have the money yet. And Ramazutra said that you can't eat anymore because he's trying to get it. You can't eat it no longer in that scenario. Rav Kahana, Rav Papa, Rav Ashi, these three rabbis, will not eat the fruits from a field, even in a scenario where you are using those fruits to reduce the debt. Ravina would do that. What's the reason that Ravina ate the fruits with the reduction of debt? It's like the case of Sdei Achuza. What's the case of Sdei Achuza? So generally, if a person sells property or makes property hektish, that is an inheritance property. It has been passed down from generation to generation. unlike a field that he bought from his friend. If that field becomes hekdesh and he has the ability to uh people have anybody has the ability before Yovel to redeem it, and the closer it is to the Yovel year, the cheaper it gets because Yovel automatically reverts back to the original owner. And so the Torah mentions that the year is closer to the Yovel year, it's literally pennies on the dollar, the prices. So what do we see there? Even though we see by the Ste'achuza, the ancestral field, the field that belonged to the property, to the inheritors or the family, that even though someone could buy it at pennies on the dollar and eat much more produce value than he actually spent on it, Amar Rahman Torah still said, Kaparik la that he can redeem it for just a few dollars a year. So over here is no different. Since the lender has the fruits for reduction of the debt, it's perfect. The Gemara says, "Manda asar lemalach," and the one who holds not hold it says, "Stay achuzah hekdeshi." Stay achuzah special halacha of hekdesh. But Rahmana okmei bedyon. Rahmana said, the Torah said this works in this certain way. But over here, tomorrow alone, that's why it's asur. Amri li sabed mat mahasya. The elders of the town of Mahasya told me, "Stam mashkanta shata." An unspecified pledge is 1 year. What's going on? What's the difference? The achila shata, because the lender use the field for a year, Matzi Mesalika, the borrower can now throw him off by paying off his loan. But if not, he can't throw him off. They also told me something else. My mashkanta, what does the word mashkanta mean? Dishchuna gabe. The property lives with the lender. What does that mean? Ledinat the bar misra. The halakha of the neighbor, which is if someone is selling property, the neighbor gets first dibs to buy it. In this case, if the lender has this property next door to him, he has first dibs to buy it as well. To consider the neighbor at the time. Marava. Let the halacha is not like papa's tarsha. Velo kishtarim mechuzna, not halacha with the mechoza documents. Velo kachakire nershae, not like the naharsha lease. So what's going on? Kitashed the halacha with the papa tarsha is kitashed the papa, the tarsha sales of the papa with the beer. The halacha is not like him, you can't do that. The Mechoza document is what? Is a knefele ravcha akarna. People in Mechoza, when they would do business deals, one guy who would put all the flus into it, he put the money into it, he would add the partner's share on top of the profit, which means v'kata b'shani and write it down. Meaning, if the estimate he's putting $100,000 into this business venture, and then he's just estimating to make 20% profit, so $20,000, whatever it is. He can write off that now he owns 110% of the estimated sales, and the other guy keeps the rest. But the halacha doesn't follow it because who says there'll be a profit in the first place that he could already start taking that 10% or 50% rather. My father, Amemar, used to do that, where he used to do this type of documents. Except when the merchants came before him and said that there was no profits, he believed them and didn't charge them. Amar Rashi said to him, that works as well if he's there for the payment that arrives there. He's there to verify. What if he dies and the document lands in front of his children? Maybe the orphans won't believe it and take the money even though they don't deserve it. It'll be considered a beat. And because of Ashi said that, which really means there was an error. Like the ruler made an error. The royal decree, there was an error in the royal decree because of the wording of Rav Ashi discussing how Amimar might die. Amimar passed away. So be very careful how we talk. We mentioned the Narashan's leases. They write as follows. Mishken leplanya areb lepanya. The borrower pledged his land to the lender. And then he can lease it back to him. The lender can lease it back to the borrower for a certain amount of year. But the halacha does not work because people are going to say, 1 second, the lender doesn't own it yet to lease it back to the borrower. How does that work? Nowadays we can do it. Because why? Because technically you could write that the lender acquired the land as a pledge, so therefore we see the kinyan, and therefore there's going to be no questions. I held it for a while. I can lease it back to the borrower because I don't want because we want to encourage people to lending, and if we don't let the lender do this, it will stop people from lending money, and the borrowers will be stuck without lending money, without borrowing money. and therefore we can do this. But however, the halacha is, Velav miltahi, that's not the halacha. We're posting that you can't do that.